CVM TV's weekly JPL preview show every Sunday, starting 30 minutes before our live broadcast. Get insight, analysis, and hear from your favorite players weekly, just before we bring you our feature broadcast for the day. Move from defense to attack and join us in the final third. This and every Sunday until the end of the JPL season.
Jamaica, make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
Fatal accidents have claimed the lives of 2 students from the Lennon High School in Clarendon this week, and it's not the first. Reckless driving has put the lives of or traversing students at risk. So today we will hear from stakeholders about how we can mitigate these accidents here on Lead Story. You're watching Lead Story on CVM TV. I'm Nika Lewis. So picture this. Your child wakes up at 4 a.m. You prepare a quick meal for him or her and they put on their school uniform. By 5 o'clock, it's time to leave. And they begin their journey, walking several miles to the nearest bus stop. Along the way, they navigate poorly lit roads and hope to avoid speeding vehicles. And at the bus stop, they wait anxiously, dodging buses and taxis swerving dangerously close. When the bus finally arrives, it's overcrowded. So your child squeezes in, surrounded by blaring lewd music. If they're lucky, they might find a seat. Seatbelts, not a priority. The driver speeds and swerves with your child's safety in their hands, but seemingly without concern for the responsibility they bear. This is the harsh reality for many parents and students in rural Jamaica, where a formal school bus system is a luxury they can only dream of. Sadly, this lack of safe and structured transportation has resulted in countless tragic incidents, including this week's devastating crash involving students from Lennon High over there in Clarendon. 2 young lives were lost and several others remain in critical condition. This evening on Lead Story, our guests to discuss this program are Mark Malava, the principal of Yallis High School in St. Thomas. We'll also be joined by other stakeholders, including Milbert George Miller, and we will have this discussion in just a moment.
Truth is, HIV affects everyone. Truth is, avoiding care leads to a weaker immune system. That means you could get really sick. The truth is, the hardest pill to swallow isn't the medication. It's the problems that follow when you don't take them. Let's get through this together. Remain in care. You can live life to the fullest with HIV. And that's the truth. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Where the difference is made, where titles are decided, where respect is earned. Excel here and you could go down in history. It's the final third. CVM TV's weekly JPL preview show every Sunday, starting 30 minutes before our live broadcast. Get insight, analysis, and hear from your favorite players weekly just before we bring you our feature broadcast for the day. Move from defense to attack and join us in the final third. This and every Sunday until the end of the JPL season.
Welcome back to Lead Story. We're talking about the rural transportation system in our country. Of course, we know about the tragedy that struck sections of Clarendon yesterday. It also left 2 lives lost and several in critical condition. We know families are in mourning, and this is something we wish to never repeat. So joining the discussion to talk about how we can fix this problem, especially in our rural spaces, we have the principal of Yallis High School, no stranger to the media, Mr. Mark Malava. Welcome, Mr. Malava.
Thanks for having me.
Certainly, it is possibly one of the hardest news when you hear about tragedies of this nature. But why has it been so hard to implement a standard bus system for rural schools?
Well, let me begin by extending my deepest condolences to the staff and students of Lennon High and the family of those who lost their life in this tragic accident. A lot has to do with the dynamics of of our rural communities. You have rural communities, you have deep rural communities, and you have deep rural communities. The road infrastructure in some of these areas are very terrible. For example, there are some very remote areas where where some students live. It's not a one-size-fits-all sort of approach that we can take. It's certainly not a broad brush approach, because if we do a rural bus system as is being articulated, then by and large the buses will be going to the main town areas, and in all honesty, most of these students are coming from outside of the town areas, the town areas, to come to school.
From deeper rural spaces.
From deeper rural spaces, correct. So it's a difficult. Well, for me, it's a very dynamic issue. Unfortunately, we tend to have a very knee-jerk reaction whenever these things happen. It's not the first that we have lost students on our roads, and whenever that happens, then the discussion surfaces and then it dies down. Many rural schools, high schools in particular, have a bus system in place. This is a system that through the Ministry of Safety and Security branch have initiated this. So those schools, many high schools, for example, or several high schools, will charter bus services or contract bus services to take students to and from school. So that is in place in several high schools in particular.
Noted.
Where I think it needs to go is that it certainly needs to be expanded in a very significant way, because as it is now, it caters to, or it's supposed to be catering to part students, but it doesn't necessarily happen in those cases. For example, at my school, we are part of that program, and what we do is utilize our school bus, for example, to transport students to and from schools.
Right.
Is it enough? No, because we only have one bus. So where perhaps where we need to go is expansion of that program.
Well, let me see if Mr. Miller, who is now joining the conversation, he's the principal of the Sydney Pagan STEM Academy, Milbert Miller. Are you hearing me now, Mr. Miller?
I am hearing you clearly. Thank you.
Perfect.
For having me on board.
Absolutely.
And I first must join my colleague principal by extending condolences to the Lennon High School and all the families affected, because this again is a sad moment in the lives of our students, and with all stakeholder groups within the education system. It's really another dark moment, and the quicker we get over and get these things behind us, the better it will be for the education system.
Well, Mr. Miller, have you at any point attempted to try or implement a bus system at the Sydney Pagan STEM Academy? And what was the result of that, or how is it, if you've ever tried?
All right. So, yes, at the Sydney Pagan STEM Academy, we have to contract buses to bring our students to school. We are in a rural parish. We are in a rural area. In fact, on our route from Santa Cruz, there are few taxis on our route. And so it's difficult for students to get to and from school. Coming out of the town center of Santa Cruz, we have 6 buses. And from Goshen, Pepper side, we have 1. From the Thornton, Silo, Magate, taking those students coming from up in the hills, bordering St. James, Retirement Ellerslie area, coming down, we have 2 buses. From Loana, coming across Black River Loana, coming up to us through Lacovia, we have another bus there. And one of the challenges we face is that especially those students who are traveling from as far south as Schoolfield in Malvern, as far northwest of us, to the border of Trelawney, not Trelawney, St. James, Accompong, Bed-Salem, Retirement, Ellerslie, joined to that area in the cockpit country. And then when you come more north now from Aberdeen, Thornton, Williamsfield area coming down, and then we have 2 buses coming out of Balaclava area, which touch base with the border of Manchester. And so our students are spread right across different deep rural areas. So what the school has done since we have transitioned in 2014 to a STEM academy, we have been utilizing contracted buses to take our students to and from school, and these buses actually wait on our students.
Understood.
What we find happening, though, it is challenging because the cost. Some students right now only come to school 3 days per week.
What?
With all the interventions, we are part of the Ministry of Education's Rural Transportation Program, which allows us to subsidize the cost for those who are traveling, students who are on path, and those who are very, very needy, though few, not catering to as many as we would have liked, because there are a lot of needy students who are not able to be on the path program. So that is a challenge for us as well. So these students, some of them only come to school 3 days for the week. Internally, we have sanctioned by the board, when we do fundraisers, 10% of all our fundraising activity goes towards a welfare program that goes through the guidance department. When we find students who are having challenges attending school, we step in and intervene, because some of these students cannot benefit from the rural transportation program. And the rural transportation program only cover a small, about 16 in our school, and that's a small, not even 10% of the students that are on path, because more than 60% of our students, roughly about 70 probably, are students who are on path or should be on path. Okay. And I'm talking about, I have a population of approximately 900 students.
And only a minor fraction of that is assisted in this program, on this rural program. What about your students, Mr. Malava? We know that you mentioned you had at least 1 bus. So compared to the Sydney Pagan STEM Academy, you are seemingly in dire straits. You only have 1, they have about 6. What's the ideal number you would appreciate, and what segment of the population do you see being catered to most by that 1 bus?
Well, it's no more than about 20% by that 1 bus, because the bus will make several trips in the morning, several trips in the in the evenings as well. There are students who outside of that buses will take down to the school, that sort of thing. There are some students whose parents may make arrangements to pick up their for transportation of their child. But many of the taxis that operate within that area in particular are robot taxis.
Well, tell you what, we're going to speak a little more to that, Mr. Malava, but do allow us to take a quick break. We'll be right back and we'll pick up the conversation on the rural transportation system.
Monday night, a match made in heaven. We call it Monday Match Night. Catch all the heart-pounding JPL Monday night action from now until the end of the season on CVM TV's Monday Match Night. Matchday Mondays at 7:4 to 5 p.m. with rebroadcast Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Nothing else can quite match up.
What's your story? What's your sign? We're dreamers. Don't care what other people say. We're doing this in our own way. We come alive. We come alive. We come alive. We're doing this in our own way. We come alive.
Welcome back to Lead Story. We're talking about the rural transportation system and how safety is being impacted of our students and commuters in general, but especially our students, some of whom lost their lives yesterday in a very major accident in a section of Maypen Clarendon. Those students attended the Lennon High School, and unfortunately we don't have that principal here to continue the dialogue, but we are being joined by two other headmasters. We have Mr. Mark Malava, principal of the Yalis High School in St. Thomas, and Mr. Milbert Miller, the principal of the Sydney Pagan STEM Academy in St. Elizabeth. So before we went to the break, Mr. Malava, we're picking up that conversation. You mentioned a key term in our Jamaican context about the robot taxis. What exactly, for the unsuspecting individual who's never had to encounter this phenomenon of a robot taxi, or as we call them, very informally illegitimate, not authorized to be doing so, but they're doing so, transporting people up and down the routes. What are the robot taxis in your mind?
Well, the robot taxis are those taxis that are not licensed as public transportation vehicles. They are licensed for private transportation. In other words, they did not go to the transport authority to apply for a route license, gotten the requisite insurance, and have red plates, so to speak, which is a distinction between robot and private vehicles. In my estimation, there are far more robot taxis in the system than there are public transportation vehicles. It's part. I'm not even. You use the word phenomenon. I'm not so sure it's a phenomenon. It's a part of our culture, really. It's ingrained in our in our transportation system, really, because the transportation system is a very liquid sort of industry. You know, you get ready cash, and cash moves to and fro easy. In some instances, it's really a hustle for some persons. The truth is that within the context of everything that is happening, there is a need for us to step back and properly assess the transportation system collectively. We have been here before, years ago. I remember when growing up, there were issues in terms of transportation of school children. Yeah, and the then government implemented a school bus system. That was not sustained. And I remember some time ago, I'm passing, I don't remember where it was, but I saw those buses parked up, dilapidated. For me, where we need to do is to ensure that we have a very safe public transportation system, and where possible, within the context of the schools, that the schools be bolstered with these rural bus systems for school bus system, for example, in terms of expanding that, in terms of ensuring that the schools have more funds to fund these type of programs.
Yes.
Any other route may end up not being sustainable.
Understood.
Yeah.
I'm bringing back Mr. Miller into the conversation because we want to know what role possibly the police could play in protecting our students traversing the road networks to and from schools. And perhaps if you, as an administrator, have approached the JCF in this regard.
Just before I respond to that question, let me just clarify. Unlike my colleague, Mr. Malava, we don't have a school bus. We don't own any of these buses. All of these buses are contracted. And we use them, these same buses, for the rural transportation program. So that students coming from all the different rural areas can benefit from this rural transportation support that the ministry funds, which we all agree is inadequate at the moment, right? And so much needs to be done there.
How inadequate
However,
is it? How much more would you?
Very well. All right. Considering a student leaving Santa Cruz to my school, and that's about 12, 15 kilometers away, those students pay $400 per day.
And that's just from Santa Cruz
to the school. And I have roughly about 7 buses coming out of that area. Those buses that students take to school, which we have provided for them to take to school, because many of them don't. And some cannot catch those buses to be early at school because these robot taxis that will have to bring these students into the town of Santa Cruz, when the police is on the road or the transport authority, they can't venture into the town. And therefore, these students have to stay in their community or find alternate, or somebody may have to give them a drive down, or they wait until they know when the police has changed location or transport authority, and that cat and mouse game. So yes, the police has a role to play in monitoring, and we have met with the police in St. Elizabeth. We had a meeting, I remember, with not the present superintendent of police, but we would have had a meeting at St. Elizabeth Technical High School between principals, dean of disciplines, and they were more concerned about the loitering and all of that. And we did propose some of the things that we could get help. In my school, we have a safety and security officer from the constabulary that visits our school regularly and is working with us to intervene in the town of Santa Cruz to reduce the loitering. But where the transportation is concerned, the robot taxis is a challenge, and it's going to be a challenge for the education system until we can come up with a solution as proposed by my colleague. We have to have rural transportation buses provided by the government to take the students to the various schools. And most of our schools, are within a certain zone. Sometimes if you look at the distance between maybe 5 or 10 miles away, so you can organize the movement of the buses that it is serving more than one high school. So you don't have to wait until, for example, my students coming from Luana.
I'm going to have to cut in on you, Mr. Miller, because I want to bring in our newest panelist, Dr. Lucien Jones. He's the vice chairman of the National Road Safety Council and a friend of the media. So, Dr. Jones, welcome to the discussion. You're a bit late, but we're going to throw in one question for you. What role has the Road Safety Council played in protecting public roadways, especially for our students?
Two questions. Public roadways fall under the category of safe roads. We have been advocating for safe roads in Jamaica for a very long time. We have highlighted the fact that the ACP Gary McKenzie from the the police, they went around the entire island and they identified the roads which have potholes, not enough markings, poor signage, submitted it to the NWA and trying to get NWA to fund this. So to date, very little has been done, and therefore a lot of work needs to be done in respect of safe roads. So we have been in the vanguard of the struggle to have safe roads in Jamaica. In terms of schools and school children, that's a major issue. That's a little bit above our pay grade. But I would say this, to the extent that we can organize to have people traveling on buses en masse rather than individual cars or taxis, it's much better for safety. You move people quicker and you move people much more safely if you can organize buses rather than taxis. So I'm in support of the bus system. The challenge you face culturally is that many of these school children don't want to take the buses. They are very comfortable with the taxis.
Well, perhaps because sometimes these bus drivers don't want the students to be on the buses. They'll tell you it's a small fare, small price.
It's a complex issue, and I'm speaking now as a family physician, aware of some of the things that are taking place in the minds of our children.
Dr. Jones,
they want to pack up the taxis.
It's a conversation we must continue to have, but certainly, gentlemen, it's not going to happen this evening because we're about out of time. We're making way for the news at 7, but thank you so much. That is Dr. Lucian Jones, Vice Chairman of the NRSC. We also had Mr. Mark Malava of the Yallis High School and Mr. Milbert Miller from the Sydney Pagan STEM Academy. Thank you so much. Road safety is critical, especially for our students, but we'll pick up that conversation at another time when we're less pressed. Thanks again for making it Lead Story.
On 658-208-5377 and see your business goals happen right here on CVM Television.